Today we're talking about parenting a wayward child. How do we respond as parents when the child we raise well is making destructive decisions? That's up next on this episode of the Healing Place Marriage and Family Podcast.
Welcome to Healing Place Marriage and Family Podcast, where families are equipped to reflect God's redeeming love. And now here are your hosts, Michael Compagna and Jared Lambert.
Welcome everybody once again to the Healing Place Marriage and Family Podcast, where families are equipped to reflect Christ's redeeming love. I'm your host, Jared Lambert. Today we continue in our parenting series, and we're going to talk about parenting a wayward child. We are pleased to have on today's episode Mrs. Yvonne Bourgeois, author of her book, Meet Me in the Trunk. Earlier, we had the opportunity to sit down and talk with her about her testimony and her book. And in this book, Miss Yvonne shares about when facing day-to-day stress with work, family, and friends, she would frequently escape to her trunk to let God minister to her spirit. We'll get into more details when we cut to the interview, but I just wanted to introduce Mrs. Yvonne and her wonderful husband, Parnell Bourgeois, to the audience, listening audience. Yvonne and Parnell's been married for over 42 years. They have 3 children and 7 grandchildren. Both Miss Yvonne and Mr. Parnell are retired. They've been members of Healing Place Church since 2001. They've been connected and serving here in the house for a long, long time. They're part of the New Beginnings family group, which ministers to family members of addicts and people who are living in self-destructive lifestyles. They've been planted in a strong married small group for a long time. Miss Yvonne also is planted in a woman's small group. They're also part of Miss Yvonne's part of the women's small group leaders coaching team, where they mentor, coach, and oversee some of our women's small group leaders. They're also part of our greeters team. So they've been plugged into the church for a very long time. One of those couples in our church that help us be a healing place for a hurting world. And it was such an honor to sit with Miss Yvonne and hear her heart for parents in similar situations. And we got the opportunity to sit down early with her this week. So here's that interview. Like we said in the intro, we're sitting with Miss Yvonne Bourgeois, longtime member of HPC and also author of the book, Meet Me in the Trunk. We're excited to have her join us today. Miss Yvonne, how are you doing?
Doing just fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. Listen, we just want to, first of all, just let you know how much we appreciate you guys, both you and Mr. Parnell, such a vital part of our church and our mission and vision to be a healing place for hurt and well. Let's go ahead. So we appreciate your time. Let's jump right into it. Tell us, what does the title Meet Me in the Trunk mean?
Okay, Meet Me in the Trunk, it's really twofold. It was a time when things are going good, you are just, riding on cloud 9 and your kids are behaving and everything is going great. And so you just live your life by yourself, basically, without the need of anything else. But when things start getting bumpy, when the road starts getting bumpy, you really look for somebody else to help, to take the wheel. And so that's most of it from my experience, for me. That's when I turned to God. God, I can't navigate this. I had a child that was just not making real good choices. So the road was very bumpy. And so it was, God, please take the wheel. And he took the wheel and things went smooth and fine. And so then you say, okay, thanks for your help. I've got it from here. All right, and then you start going through the bumpy roads again because they're not going to end that one time.
Right.
And so you get him to take the wheel again, and you climb in the back seat. Mm-hmm. And you think, okay, from here on, he's got it. It's all his. He's going to do this. And from the back seat, it's okay. But, you get so lulled when things are smooth and great that you reach over and you take that steering wheel again. Right. So for me, I was spending years and years of doing that, giving him, God, you're in control. Thank you very much. I've got it from here. And then only to have to go back and, from the back seat, say, God, please take the wheel again, like the country western song, right. Jesus, take the wheel. But I'm a very visual learner, so I've had to physically and mentally picture myself getting in the trunk of a car and closing that lid and letting God drive.
Right.
And it wasn't a place of hiding. You know, I wasn't hiding in the trunk. I was meeting God in the trunk.
Right.
He was ministering to my heart, to my worry, to my fears. While I was in the trunk, I could focus on me.
Yeah.
And also, when I was in the trunk, I was not running interference for what he wanted to do in somebody else's life, namely my child's life.
Right.
So when I say meet me in the trunk, it's mainly, come on, God, it's that time again. You know, I'm starting to reach, I'm starting to itch for that steering wheel, and it's not mine to drive, it's yours.
Right.
So that's basically how the whole meet me in the trunk came about.
Now, you just talked about the illustration you gave. You talked about a progression of letting go of the wheel but staying in the front seat, letting go of the wheel, getting in the back seat. So there's a learning process involved when it comes to, as believers, trying to live according to kingdom principles while at the same time living in a broken, fallen world.
Yes.
So, just to encourage listeners, probably not going to get it right the first time, are we?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You learn by experience.
Yeah.
And I think very few get it right the first time.
Right.
And something that you have to struggle for to gain is going to be so much more valuable than something that tried it once, got it, no problem.
Yeah.
So, that classroom of pain is a phenomenal teacher.
Right.
Those lessons will last you for a lifetime.
Yeah.
It's not to say you won't forget and have to be reminded, but you know where to go.
Yeah.
You know where to seek those answers and that calm and that peace in the midst of the storm.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I love the illustration. So whenever, Jesus said, in this world you will have tribulation.
Yes. He wasn't lying.
He wasn't lying. As it turns out, the word is truth. So when those tribulations come and we are tempted to grab that wheel, well, better said, now that you've learned that the front seat is not your place, the back seat, now that you know the trunk is your place, how do you know that it's time to get into the trunk?
Usually, the Holy Spirit is your friend. Your Holy Spirit is your best friend. And there's so many times when he'll whisper, no, not now. Pray more, preach less. All of these different things. He will whisper it. But sometimes you have to just step back and realize, am I compromising? Am I compromising on what I believe in order to keep peace? Or am I compromising my beliefs for anything? And am I trying to control something that's not mine? God has given us children for a time.
Right.
They're his, first and foremost. And then he lets us shepherd them the best we can. And I believe all parents, I can't imagine any parent out there who does not do the best they can with what they have at the time.
Right.
And God made us. He knows we're imperfect. There's no perfect parent. But we know who the perfect one is to go to. So whenever there's a hesitancy or there was a ruffledness in my spirit or in my heart, I couldn't feel at peace about a certain situation, I knew, don't make any decisions. You've got to get away from it. You've got to get in there and hear from the Lord.
Yeah.
He's got your answer in this. He knows what's going on.
Probably a root of what you're saying in your illustration about the trunk is that the flesh wants to hold on. The flesh wants to do for itself.
Yeah, like when it's such a two-edged sword. You think about it. When your kids are doing great, they've got wonderful jobs, they're doing everything, and people will just say, "Oh, you're so lucky. Your son is doing wonderful. Your daughter's a lawyer. Oh, wow, isn't that great?" And you kind of smile and you think, "Okay, I'm doing pretty good. I must have done okay. I did this, I did that." But then on the other hand, when you have a child that is not doing well and is not making good choices, and you get into a crowd of people and you're just praying, "Oh, dear God, please don't let them ask how Junior's doing," because he's not doing very well.
Yeah.
You have two choices. Just as if you're going to take responsibility for the good that your child did, then you might have to think about, well, do I have to take responsibility for the bad that they've done, or the not so wise decisions that they've done? And if you go that road, that's hard. That's very, very painful. But if you know that they're a child of God, they are where they are because of the Lord.
Yeah.
They're responsible for their own decisions, so whether they're good or bad, I guess is what I'm really trying to say.
Okay, so it's time to get into the trunk, and we've learned the progression of letting go of the wheel, staying in the front seat, getting in the back seat, finally realizing we got to get in the trunk. We know when we have to get in the trunk, but I think there's a fine line, and you just talked about it a little bit just now. That line of, by giving it to God, am I giving up? So does it seem like you're giving up whenever you retreat to the trunk and fully release the situation to God?
Before I was saved, I would have probably thought, oh, these people, they can't deal with it anymore, so they're just going to throw their hands up and say, "God, you've got it." Without really, before I had a relationship with the Lord. You never give up on your child, but you have to give them up to the Lord. For years, I've done it both ways. We've done it both ways because we were saved since about 2001, and I've been a parent for 42 years. So, that kind of leaves some time of parenting without God. You have to realize that you're giving them up to their real father.
Right.
God created them and he lent them to us.
Right.
He basically is the one who can perform the miracles that are needed. He's the one that has gifted children with certain things where they excel. And even those that go down the wrong path, he has still gifted them. There's just a spiritual warfare and who's going to win this battle. And we know who wins in the end.
Exactly.
But, there comes a time when even their physical responsibility is no longer yours. They're grown up, and you can't mold them and raise them anymore. Your job is done, but they're still going to always be your children. You're going to always love them and do the best for them that you can. And just like the father in the story of the prodigal son, and the word prodigal is never used in the Bible, but yet when we say prodigal son, everybody knows what story that is.
Right.
He let his son go.
Yeah.
He knew what was ahead for him.
Right.
He knew the pain. Yet he let him go. He didn't turn his back. He went up to the hill. In my heart, I know he traveled up that hill every day and looked out on the horizon to see when his son was coming back. So we do have to let our children go and learn their lessons and fall and get back up and develop those muscles that are going to get them through the life.
Yeah.
And, right now we are going through that with our youngest son, who is in jail right now and will spend Christmas in jail.
Yeah.
He just, we can't do it anymore, and we're not the ones that are going to save him. God's going to save him and nobody else.
Right.
So it's not giving up. It's not waving the white flag in that respect. It's waving the white flag saying, "God, I'm tired of running interference." Because God is such a gentleman. He's not going to fight us for control of what he knows is already his.
Right.
He's going to let us bang our head on the wall until we realize it hurts, and then we're going to say, God, he's yours, and I love you, and you love him.
Do you ever really let go and let God?
As a mom, I can tell you no. I also can tell you that it does get easier. It's not like I'll wake up in the morning and say, okay, God, he's yours, and never visit that again. You know, I've been programmed for 40-something years with being a mom in a certain way. And I think as parents, we're always programmed to provide for our children.
Yeah.
Sometimes our provision is let them hurt. Let them feel the pain, because then they'll remember the results of that decision.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, you know, that's like threatening. If you do that again, I'm going to spank you.
Yeah.
Okay, if you do that one more time, I'm going to spank you. And the spanking never comes. So the child learns from a very early age,
Right.
well, I can do what I want, because there is no repercussions for my actions.
Right. Yeah, you saying that, and I'm thinking about, I heard a teaching on Matthew 18 about the, discipline. And ultimately, if there's not confession and submission, we're supposed to let them go and treat them as an unbeliever. Now, that's not punitive punishment, but again, like you saying, I think the heart of that message is we're gonna put them out and treat them as an unbeliever, and they will miss that spiritual family.
Yes.
They will miss that fellowship and those people speaking life and encouraging with them. They're going to miss that fellowship with their brothers and sisters in Christ, and they're also going to miss that fellowship with God. So not only are we supposed to provide teaching moments, but we're supposed to let people experience, the fruits of consistent disobedience. So I think if you get into the truck, if you let go and let God, expecting God to continue to reach out to them, to knock on the door of their hearts with the expectation and the hope that they're going to miss that fellowship with you as parents, they're going to miss that fellowship with the Lord, that is going to bring them back like the prodigal son.
Yes, most definitely.
What would you say, going through this process, this learning process, what did you learn about yourself from your time in the trunk?
I think the main thing that I really learned is that there's a world of difference between knowing about somebody and really knowing them. I mean, I knew about God. I went to Catholic school from first grade. Baltimore catechisms, who made you, God made you, why did he make you? I knew all of that. But it wasn't until I allowed myself to fully know him and his heart by spending time in the Word, by spending time in prayer, that I really realized that I am more than what my children do.
Yeah.
I am more than the mother of an addict. I am more than somebody's wife. I am more than whatever my job was at that time. That I was a child of the Creator of the world.
Yeah.
That I was a child of the King. And that I always had a father to go to. My father was a wonderful father. He struggled, but he was human. And the same thing with me as a parent. I have no regrets. I don't blame myself for any of the decisions that my kids made, because I can truthfully say that I did do the best that I could with what I had at the time. And so I learned that when Jesus died on the cross, he didn't make me God. It was like he's still God, and he sits on the throne, and he's in control. And prayer should be my first resort, not my last.
Right.
And that he wants just as much as he wants the best for me, and I want the best for my children. they're his children, and he's their father, and his heart for them, he has more love in his heart for them than I could even imagine. And
Yeah.
that is a very big comfort to know that as much as I love him, he loves them more.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, so that's what you learned about yourself. What did you learn about your child from your time in the trunk?
I have 3 children. And I learned that each one of them is different. You know, they've made, they were all brought up in the same household. I mean, there was like 3 years apart, so there might have been some small changes and stuff, but they're all three different individuals. And that a lot of it, they've traveled the paths that they've traveled because of the decisions that they've made. Those that made good decisions, wonderful. Those that didn't, I know in my heart that it was not a vindictive way, like, let me get up this morning and see what I can do to break my mom's heart.
Yeah.
It's a tough world out there. It's a spiritual warfare out there, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And it's getting harder and harder and harder.
Yeah.
And so I don't hold any animosity or any, I do have to say anger comes in every once in a while, but it's quelled. You know,
Yeah.
God gives me that peace on the heart and says, you know, he didn't do this on purpose, you know. And I do realize that children who've lost their way, they know they have. It's like when you're getting lost, it's not like you think, oh, I'm about to be lost. It's, oh no, I'm lost. And so I think the children that are lost, they know they are.
Yeah.
They come to a point in their life that they know there are. I don't have to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't have to have them listening to me spouting proverbs and pointing my finger with the judgmental. That's not my job.
Mm-hmm.
And that will turn them off a lot sooner than anything. And I
Yeah.
did learn with children, you may not think that they're listening, but they do.
Absolutely.
They listen to everything.
They listen and they watch.
Yes,
Because we're not only speaking to them, we're living out in front of them.
right.
Yeah.
And I know when my daughter was probably early college days or whatever, I just thought for sure that all the things that I had spouted off to her as she was growing up in high school, she never really listened to until I heard her on the phone with a friend of hers who was going through something, and she was saying the exact words that I had told her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they do, and like you said, they look and they listen, and they actions do speak louder than words.
Gotcha. All right, so what did you learn about God while in the trunk?
Oh, gosh. I learned that he's the most patient and loving father imaginable.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that he really does listen. And that he loves me so much that he's not going to fight me for control.
Wow, yeah. Because there's a lesson for us as parents.
Oh, yes.
As we're trying to shepherd our kids, I mean, that's a lesson for us,
Yes.
too.
Oh, yes.
We forget
The
that.
learning curve I've been through in the past 3-4 weeks is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And well, I'll go to, remind me I need to tell you something after this, but that he really does want to wait, and I see him as the father on the hill when the prodigal returns. You know, he's there with outstretched arms. He's not there with a pointing finger, saying, "I told you so. I knew this was going to happen." You know, his arms are outstretched.
Yeah.
And that's the picture, that's the God I know,
Yeah.
is the one with the outstretched arms. It's just a smile and saying, hey, welcome home.
Right. He knew it was going to happen because all of our days are written in his book before yet one of them come to be.
Yeah.
But his desire is for his glory and for our joy.
Yeah.
So he knew it was going to happen, but he's helping us bring him glory, and he's helping us to walk in the fullness of joy that he has for us. So it's not like, aha, I told you so. It's, aha, I got something way better for you.
Yeah. And it's like, when we first started this most recent foray into insanity, kind of speaking, Pastor Mike had preached a sermon, and it was on Lazarus. And there was the scripture that he quoted that I ended up putting on my mirror and going to every day. And it was, "But this sickness will not end in death, but to the glory of God through his son, Jesus Christ."
Right.
And, that just is far-reaching for so many different things, so many different aspects in our life, especially to parents who were befuddled on how their kids could be doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
It will not end in death, but to the glory of God the Father. And that's what all of our actions should be.
All right, so if you had to do it all over again, would you do anything differently?
I would have to say no. Because I know where I am right now in my relationship with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And if my son had never done drugs, I might not be here.
Right.
I don't know, but I'm not willing to take that chance. He was the reason why we ended up at Healing Place in the first place.
Yeah.
So, as hard as it is, I would have to say no. I couldn't take that chance of not having the relationship with the Lord that I do.
Mm-hmm.
And what I wanted to tell you earlier was, with my son being put in jail last week, with the Christmas holidays coming up, and he just got out of rehab the week before, and the kids were so excited, and I just thought, well, this is just really kind of a ludicrous for me to go and talk about parenting when my son's in jail. How fun. God just has such a sense of humor.
Absolutely.
And I was tempted to call you and tell you, I can't do this. My heart is too raw. I just can't do this.
Yeah.
But God laid on my heart, if one person would benefit from anything that you say, it's worth it.
Right.
The devil doesn't win this battle.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole way here, that's what I prayed, is God just use me to speak what you want someone to hear.
Yeah.
And no, it's not easy raising kids. It's probably one of the toughest jobs in the world. It doesn't monetarily, it doesn't pay well, but it's also one of the most rewarding jobs in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That God would entrust you with his precious creation also.
All right, Miss Yvonne. Well, again, we appreciate you sitting down with us. Meet Me in the Trunk is the name of the book. It can be purchased here at the Missions Cafe and Bookstore. It's also available on Amazon, ChristianBooks.com, and a lot of other book retailers. And I know Miss Yvonne and Parnell's heart is to do everything they can to help parents deal with similar situations. Miss Yvonne, we thank you again for taking time and visiting with us and pouring into our listeners today.
You're welcome.
There we go. Once again, Miss Yvonne Bourgeois, author of the book Meet Me in the Trunk. It was so good to sit with her and hear her testimony and to hear all of the things that God is doing in and through her and Mr. Parnell. Now, we just wanted to let our listeners know, if you're walking through a season or a family situation with a wayward child, Miss Yvonne and Mr. Parnell would love to come alongside and serve you guys, minister, and to help and encourage you in any way they can. So if you would like to connect with Miss Yvonne and Mr. Parnell, we would love for you to give us shoot us an email at marrieds@healingplacechurch.org. That's MARRIEDS, marrieds@healingplacechurch.org. And if you can just give us a name, contact information, and a brief summary of what you got going on, we can definitely get you connected with Miss Yvonne and Mr. Parnell. That'll do it for this episode. We'll see you next time on the Healing Place Marriage and Family Podcast.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. For more information about Healing Place Church, visit us online at healingplacechurch.org. To stay informed of upcoming events, check us out on Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share this podcast with your family and your friends.